My name is Nathan, I'm 28 years old. On paper, I'm a billionaire, but almost nobody knows that. I've always hated how people treat you differently when they find out you have money. That's why, for most of my adult life, I've lived like a normal man. I dress in simple clothes, I drive a second-hand car, I live in a small apartment I own under a fake name. And that's exactly how I met her, Sophie. I still remember that rainy afternoon at the coffee shop. I had just walked in, completely soaked from the downpour. The place was full except for one chair at a small table near the window. She was sitting there alone, sipping tea and reading a book. I politely asked, "Do you mind if I sit here? I just need to wait out the rain." She looked up, smiled, and nodded. "Sure, go ahead." That smile, it changed something in me. We didn't talk much that first time, but the second time I saw her there again, I sat down and asked about the book she was reading. One conversation led to another, and soon, we started meeting more often. She thought I was just a regular guy working a 9-to-5 office job, struggling to pay rent. I let her believe that. I didn't want her to love me for my money. I wanted her to love me for me, and for a while, it seemed like she did. She was different from the other girls I had dated. She didn't ask about expensive gifts or fancy restaurants. We'd walk in the park, eat street food, and sit by the lake for hours talking about life. It felt real. It felt like I had finally found someone who didn't care about wealth or status. 6 months in, I asked her to move in with me. My apartment wasn't luxurious, but she didn't hesitate. She said, "I'm not here for money. I'm here because I love you." And I believed her. But slowly, things started changing. It began with small complaints. My clothes, my car, the cheap places we ate. She'd say things like, "I wish we could just have a nice dinner sometime." Or, "Don't you ever dream of doing better?" I told her. I had dreams, but I was still working on them. I told her I wanted to build something of my own. She smiled and kissed me, but her eyes looked disappointed. Then she met him. His name was Daniel. He owned the marketing agency she worked at. Tall, confident, charming and rich. The kind of man who wore designer suits, drove a Lamborghini, and had a smile that could melt steel. At first, Sophie just mentioned him casually. "He's a good boss, really smart." But then, I noticed the change. She started dressing up more for work, staying late, ignoring my calls, smiling at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I asked her, "Is there something going on between you two?" She laughed. "Are you serious? You think I'd cheat on you just because he's rich?" I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, I felt it. One night, she didn't come home. I waited till midnight. I called. No answer. She came back at 2 a.m., smelling like alcohol and expensive cologne. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She shrugged. "Out with friends." "Which friends?" "Why are you interrogating me?" She snapped. "I don't owe you an explanation for everything." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, mind racing. I had given her my soul, my love, my everything, and she was slipping away. A few days later, I followed her. She said she had a late meeting. I watched from across the street as she got into Daniel's car. He opened the door for her like a gentleman. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm. That was it. I walked home in silence, a storm boiling inside me. I didn't confront her that night or the next. I wanted to see how far she would go. If she'd tell me. If she'd confess, she'd deed in single quotes T. Instead. The next week, she told me she wanted to take a break. "I just feel like we're in different places," she said. "You don't seem ambitious." "I don't want to be stuck in the same small apartment forever." I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I simply nodded and said, "Okay." She left, and 2 weeks later, she posted a photo on Instagram. Her arms around Daniel, smiling wide, wearing a diamond necklace. I knew he had bought her. The caption, "New beginnings with the one who truly values me." I stared at that photo for a long time. She chose him because he was rich, because he could give her the life I pretended I didn't have. But what she didn't know was that I owned the company Daniel worked for. He wasn't the CEO, I was. Everything she thought he could offer, I already had, 10 times over. And now, it was my turn. She had made her choice, and I was going to make sure she lived to regret it. After that night at her office dinner, something changed in the air. I could feel it. I had no concrete proof, but instincts, they rarely lie. Emma started becoming distant. Her late work hours became a pattern. She used to call me the moment she reached the office, even if for a minute. Now silence. I'd call her, and she'd say, "Sorry, busy, in a meeting. Talk later." Talk later never came. I didn't confront her immediately. I wanted to observe, to understand. Sometimes, people don't need confrontation. They need time to show you who they really are. One night, I waited outside her office. My car was parked on the opposite side, slightly hidden. I wanted to surprise her. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted to confirm my fears. And then I saw it. She walked out of the office laughing, not with her female colleagues, not alone, but with that man from the dinner, Mr. Charming. Expensive suit, sleek car, confidence pouring from every word he said. She looked at him, like she used to look at me once, but got into his car together. That was it. My heart didn't break in that moment. It shattered in slow motion, piece by piece, like glass falling on cold marble. And I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. I drove home that night with no music, just silence and the weight of betrayal sitting beside me like a ghost. The next few days, she kept up the lies. Work is just too much. We're planning a big project. I'm tired. Can we not talk tonight? I nodded, smiled, listened. Not because I believed her, but because I was building my own plan in silence. You see, I wasn't just any man. Emma thought I was a struggling mechanic who fixed cars and scraped by. What she didn't know was, I owned the chain of garages across 5 states. I just liked working with my hands. I liked living simple. I liked seeing who people were when they thought you had nothing to offer. Emma failed the test. I spent the next few days having my assistant gather everything. Photos, videos, GPS pings, receipts. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted the truth. And the truth came hard and fast. Dinner dates at 5-star restaurants, shopping sprees, private resorts booked under his name and hers, all while telling me she was working overtime. One evening, she came home late. I had cooked dinner, candlelight, just like old times. She looked surprised. "You did all this?" she asked, hanging her coat. "Yeah," I said. "Thought we needed a night together. You've been so busy lately." She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and sat down. We talked like old times, laughed, ate, and just as she took a bite of dessert, I slid the envelope across the table. She looked at it. "What's this? Open it." She hesitated, then did. Her smile vanished. Her eyes widened. She flipped through the photographs, each one a time-stamped memory of her betrayal. She looked up at me, stunned, guilty, speechless. "I know everything, Emma," I said, voice calm. "Every lie, every night, every man." Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean to stop," I said. "Don't insult me more." I was confused. "Okay," she said. He had so much to offer, and I didn't. I asked. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I simply walked out. She called me for days. I didn't answer, because the next chapter wasn't about heartbreak. It was about showing her exactly who I really was. I didn't sleep that night. The betrayal was too loud in my head. No matter how much I tried to distract myself, her voice, her laughter with him, their text messages, they kept playing over and over in my mind. But I wasn't going to confront her yet. I needed proof, not for revenge, but for clarity, for peace, and maybe to finally let go of the hope I still carried in my chest. The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. I smiled at her, made her coffee, kissed her on the forehead like always. She looked at me, a bit guilty. Or maybe that was just me imagining it. "Babe, I might be late from work today," she said, avoiding my eyes. I nodded. "No problem, I'll wait." But I wasn't going to wait at home. I followed her, quietly, my car, a few blocks behind hers, heart pounding in my chest like a ticking bomb. And just like I feared, she wasn't going to work. She drove to a hotel. I sat in my car across the street, watching her laugh as he opened the door for her. They looked comfortable, like it wasn't their first time. I didn't cry, not this time. I just drove away. Fast, angry, numb, everything. Later that night, she came home late, just like she said. Work was crazy. She lied, placing her bag on the table and hugging me. I held her. I smelled him on her perfume, and still, I didn't say a word. But the next day, I started planning everything. I hired a lawyer. Quietly, I pulled all the screenshots, the photos, the hotel records, the bank statements, everything. But I didn't want to just leave her. I wanted her to feel what I felt. So I did something she never expected. I started pretending. I started acting like I was falling for her again, just to make her feel safe, to make her believe that I had no idea. And during that time, I started changing myself. I joined the gym again, started looking better, confident, focused. I fixed everything she said she hated about me. She started noticing. "You've changed." She smiled one day. "In a good way. Maybe you're helping me become a better man," I replied, holding her hand. She didn't know that same hand had already signed our divorce papers. But I wasn't done yet. I was about to flip her world upside down. Because what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't the simple man she thought I was. I wasn't broke. I wasn't ordinary. I was hiding something. Something big. Something that would make her regret losing me for the rest of her life. Everything felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. After that night, I stayed alone in a hotel room. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I just kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I had given my everything to Emma, and she had thrown it all away. My assistant called me several times, worried about my absence at the office. But I didn't care. For the first time in years, I let go of everything. My company, my routine, my meetings. Nothing mattered anymore. Then something happened that shook me even more. One of my security staff who handled my house cameras called me and said, "Sir, Do you want to delete the footage from the main bedroom, or should I store it? I paused. What footage? He hesitated, then replied, from the night when you were gone. I told him to send it to me. What I saw shattered whatever was left of my heart. Emma and her boss were in my bedroom, laughing, drinking wine I had kept for our anniversary, kissing on the bed we shared, and then sleeping together. Like I never existed, like our years of marriage meant nothing. It was all on video, every minute of it. I sat there frozen, and then I smiled, a strange kind of smile. Not because I found it funny, but because the pain had become too much to cry anymore. I forwarded the footage to my lawyer and said only one thing: prepare the divorce. I don't want her to get a single penny. The next day, I returned home for the first time since everything happened. Emma was shocked to see me at the door. She tried to hug me, but I stopped her. You look tired, she said, forcing a smile. You look guilty, I replied coldly. She froze. Why are you talking like this, baby? Because the mask is off, Emma. I know everything. I saw the footage. Her face turned pale. What footage? The one where you cheated in our own bed with the man you call boss. She tried to cry. She tried to explain. She blamed me for not spending time with her, for being too focused on work. I listened calmly. And then I said, Emma, I was building a future for both of us. I was working so you'd never have to. I gave you everything. Love, respect, loyalty. And you paid me back with betrayal. She dropped to her knees. Please, forgive me. I made a mistake. No, Emma, a mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Cheating is a choice. She begged. She screamed. But I had made up my mind. I loved you with everything I had. I whispered, but now, you've killed that love. I left her that day, filed for divorce, froze the joint accounts, shut off her access to the credit cards, and I told my lawyer, make sure she walks out of this marriage with nothing but regret. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just a successful businessman. I was a billionaire. I had kept it a secret from almost everyone. I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not for what I had. Emma had failed that test. I left the hospital in silence. My mother had told me everything I needed to know, the truth about Sarah, and the truth about myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't confused anymore. Went home that night and looked at the place where Sarah and I had started our journey. It was empty now, quiet, cold, just like the last months of our marriage. She had texted me a few times, called, begged to talk, but I didn't reply. I had seen enough. I had lost enough. A few days later, I sent her divorce papers through my lawyer. No fights, no revenge, just closure. But Sarah didn't want closure. She wanted another chance. She came to my office crying, begging me not to do this. Please, I made a mistake. I got lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I looked at her, not with anger, not even hate, just disappointment. You didn't make a mistake, Sarah, you made a choice. She fell to her knees. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought you didn't love me anymore. I loved you more than I loved myself, I replied. But love without respect is pain. She started crying louder. People watched from the hallways, but I didn't care. I walked away from her that day and never looked back. And that's when my life truly started. I traveled, met new people, rebuilt myself from nothing. I found peace, not in someone else, but within myself. Years later, I heard Sarah moved away and never married again. She reached out once on my birthday. Just a simple message, I'm sorry. I didn't reply, because forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnectation. Sometimes, the best revenge is healing. Sometimes, walking away is stronger than fighting, and sometimes, the people who break us are the reason we learn to love ourselves better.